All right, the meeting is being recorded. I call to order the Board of Trustees meeting for January 5th, 2021. And I'm so happy I remembered to say 21, and I think I got it everywhere right. So may I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Chamberlain.
Here.
Trustee Clayton.
Here.
Trustee Goldstein.
Here.
Trustee Haber. Trustee Hollander.
Here.
Trustee Jamerson.
Here.
President Norris.
Here. We have a quorum. We will dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance for obvious reasons. First item of business would be approval of minutes. The clerk informed me that she got some relatively late recommended changes that we can't get out to anybody, so we will not vote on the December 15th regular meeting minutes at this point. We will continue those to the 19th. We do have the special meeting minutes from December 23rd, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there any additions or corrections? There can't be much. Hearing none, we have a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of December 23rd, 2020. May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Chamberlain.
Aye.
Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Trustee Goldstein.
Aye.
Trustee Haber. Trustee Hollander.
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
And just so that you know that your efforts were worth it, we received the check from the county on Monday. So, okay, I see them. I didn't, oh, Daphne's letting them in. Okay, she's hosting now. Good.
So can I ask
Director
a
of
quick question
Community-
about that
Yes,
check? So does that go into, because it came in on Monday, that went into 2021, not 2020?
correct.
Are we ever gonna, well, never mind.
Well, yes, that's something that Trustee Clayton and I were talking about, that there has not been the same progress on moving to the accrual form of accounting that we thought there should be. We want to discuss that with the accounting advisors that we've retained. And I don't know there's a whole lot more to say at this moment. Other than that, I will ask that the record note that Trustee Haber has joined the meeting.
Yeah, I was actually here on time, but I couldn't get in for some reason.
Well, not a problem, Mike. You're here now. That's what matters. And all we voted on was the special meeting minutes, which obviously are relatively small. So Director of Community Services report.
Well, at this time, not much to report. Not much happened the last 2 weeks. We had just a couple of permits. Already had a few voicemails and stuff on my computer, so it was very quiet. So that's about all I have.
And how the doctor day was good news, I assume.
Yeah, he says I'm about 75%, my eye 75% filled, and he says probably another 2 weeks, and hopefully I should hit the fill mark and be ready to go.
And Russ will be talking to anybody Friday that thinks Alabama has a chance of winning. So since he's an Ohio State rooter, so.
Right, well, hey, you know what? As long as they make it respectable, I'll be a happy guy that they got there. I'm happy. So
Got you there. Anybody that went to Illinois is very sympathetic. Plan Commission report.
The Plan Commission sent the board its report approving Discover's request for rezoning of the King's Kennel property to ONR1 and amendment of the Discover Large Office Campus special use. And I think you'll be discussing that later in the meeting. And secondly, the Plan Commission will meet on Thursday, January 7th, to discuss a townhome concept for the Federal Life property and also the draft TIF policy guidelines that Bruce has presented to us.
Any questions for the Plan Commission? All right, Treasurer's report.
No report.
All right. Consultants, you may notice that our engineer's really smart because he just did get in. Go Walt Hamilton.
I don't know that I'm really smart, but I did get in.
Your
Correct.
timing was good.
The Mayor Norris, maybe you could bring up the map. I did want to bring the group up to speed with where we're at on soliciting opinions on a potential water project on Riverwoods Road. We did, Katie did yeoman's work reaching out and directly contacting everyone that we had contact information for. There were a handful, 3 properties that the village, either their voicemail was full or the phone number we had didn't work. Chief Dano delivered notices directly to those 3, but we've yet to hear from them. We did get one more positive result. Yes, this is the map of where we stand currently. So I think, we should still give it a week or so and see if we hear from the last 3 that just recently got the hand delivered note survey requests. But it's, I don't know, so far it's, as you can see, it certainly hasn't been overwhelming interest in the neighborhood. I don't know if, I mean, we can do all sorts of permutations based on, assumptions of what the other 3 property owners might say. And, I'm prepared if we have ideas or thoughts, or we can just kind of wait and see if we do hear from these 3, just to get a full picture of all the folks that are out there, and then see if we can craft together a project that kind of fits where the interest is.
I think council will probably agree with me that we can create a geographically contiguous zone by including all those who might want to say yes or have said yes, plus 2 people who would be saying no. But the question is, are we willing to subsidize it to the extent that that would require, given that you would be having only 6 or perhaps 7 members in the SSA for the cost of running the water that far, which would probably be a little steep.
John,
Yes,
this is Henry. Do all the people that are in red, do they all have wells that are at the standard depth that everyone else has?
Yes.
And have we had any complaints about any of those properties that you know of?
not that I know of.
The only one was the Orphans of the Storm at the corner of Riverwoods and Saunders. A few years ago, they were actually inquiring about installing a deep well, 1,500 feet deep. And I never really got a clear explanation of why they were pursuing that versus connecting to the existing water main across Saunders Road. But ultimately that project didn't go anywhere, but that's the closest that I've heard. There was the one other newer home immediately to the east of 2520, the green one. When they were building that house, I'm sorry, I can't read so little on my
2320, the green one.
2320, I'm sorry. Right. So the next house east of there, when they were building it, the builder, had asked about bringing in water, but nothing ever came of that. And clearly now, when we've actually actively reached out to the current occupant, they're not interested.
So yes, and 2420, I don't think could be compelled to join, and 2445 couldn't be compelled either, given the fact that there's actually a line of water there. They're not gaining any benefit by being included. They still have to pay a tap-on fee. They can voluntarily join an SSA, but because there's a water main there, we can't include them in the SSA involuntarily because they're not getting any benefit for it. It would clearly be just trying to spread cost. is how that works. We've ran through that with South River Woods and sewer, that we determined that fact. So again, it looks hard. Pat has reached out, but has not heard back from the homeowner at 2520 down here immediately behind Mr. Tasakas's home, to whether or not they would be willing to grant an easement there. So not a whole lot of progress made. And in general, you can see people have generally been relatively unenthusiastic about getting village water put in. Any questions on that? If not, I'll go ahead and drop the map off. Okay.
And then just the only other update I have is I'm hopeful for the next board meeting to have the quote in hand from Census. I've not heard yet if they've finished their propagation study, but we're still, reaching out to another firm to see what their meter reading solution may be. So hopefully at the next meeting, I'll have a full report on that.
We received, last night, I guess, an email as well on the county sewer rates, which will be increasing. And I'm not sure that we figured out exactly whether their rebate to us of a portion of that will be more or less than it was. I don't think it'll be a major change, but it will be larger to residents, which we will be informing them that not our bill, but the county's bill will be going up. So people will be aware of that. All right, any questions for the engineer? Hearing none, village attorney?
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. There are a couple of land use matters that I just want to bring to the board's attention. One is the Federal Life property. It is on the Plan Commission agenda, but not the property itself, just a consideration of uses that we hear through the grapevine are proposed for the site. The developers understand that Federal Life has told me that they've been talking with a broker, that they kind of have a soft marketing push to market the property. They've had this going on for some time. And as you know, Federal Life is basically a single tenant building is the way it was designed. Their workforce was at 200 at one time. It's probably down to 40. And now with COVID, they told me it's like 5 people in the building. So basically, it's a big building. It's 69,000 square feet. So it's natural for them to seek a higher and better use for the property. I think they've been there for many years. We did have conversations with them, going back many months now, on types of residential development that might be appropriate. We thought of all the alternatives that a townhome and a nice townhome development might be the right kind of use there for a number of reasons. And they put out feelers, and apparently there's a significant developer interest in that. We don't have any actual presentation or details. We had actually broached the subject of doing an RFP with them to sort of clarify what kind of project the village would find most palatable for purposes of applying TIF increment, because it's in a TIF district. They chose a more traditional route with a broker. They really don't want to get involved with an RFP process, but that's their right. So part of what the Plan Commission is looking at are a set of draft suggested guidelines for using TIF increment as a way of steering development into desirable outcomes for the public and the broader community. And they're not mandatory. I mean, I've worked with another community that had these guidelines, and when they had a variety of TIF projects in front of them, they used the guidelines as a method of deciding which projects were more worthy than others. So I thought it might be helpful for us to think about that as these projects come to us, because they know it's in a TIF area, and being in a TIF district gives us the most leverage that we have in terms of shaping desirable aspects of the development. So that could be arriving in our doorstep sooner or later. I don't know yet, but since the company itself has advised me that they're talking to people, and I know the word is out on the street, developers are looking, I would expect that sooner or later, unless the economy or something happens, we might hear something. The second thing is related. It has to do with, well, it's also at the corner, Thornton's and the developer who has the control of that site now, GMX Development. They've basically not found any way to satisfy CubeSmart with some kind of north access drive across the front of CubeSmart. Just CubeSmart doesn't want it, and they can't really, they haven't found an alternative. While they were discussing this, the village was approached by a developer who'd been in touch with the owners of the 37-acre parcel. The developer called us up, asked for an introduction, and told us that they are with a company that develops distribution centers. And in particular, for the 37 acres, they were thinking of a last mile distribution center, which is a new, jargon, but basically all of the trucks that we see from Amazon or Federal Life, Federal Express that are coming around in our neighborhoods, they fill up someplace and they try and get them as close to the customer as they can. They said that they have various models. Some of their models have more outdoor storage than others, but in the case of the landfill parcel, they were proposing or thinking of a building of maybe 150,000 square feet. And this is 24/7 operation. When we met with them and talked with them, and when I say we, I'm talking about the mayor and the trustees on the Economic Development Committee, we stressed control of noise, light pollution, no access to Deerfield Road. They said that they would definitely be able to keep traffic on or off of Milwaukee, not come on to Deerfield directly. They said that they only wanted to work with us if we wanted them. They had no interest in pursuing this if the village wasn't at all interested. We talked about other means of getting revenue from such a development. It's not exactly clear. It's not a sales tax generating business normally. And one idea that popped in our head was that there's not enough room for diesel pumps for the Thornton station on our site at the corner, but there would be if some of the site was made available in the 37 acres. That would increase the amount of sales tax revenue the village gets and perhaps provide a little bit more of an economic rationale for a distribution center. Today I got a very, very rough sketch that Thornton's put together, which gave me a sense of the dimension, the scale of having diesel pumps that would service trucks. And based on the preliminary sketch, it would basically take up the area from the right end on Milwaukee, just where you would come into the new Thornton station, south all the way to where the new entrance on Picara would be for the 37 acres, if everyone can follow me with that. So it's probably a 5-acre, guessing, use of land, because you have to have room for, they're talking about room for 18-wheelers to come in, refuel, and pull out. So it's not quite as dainty an operation as we may have thought. But the people who behind the distribution center concept said that they were willing to consider parceling out a little bit of the land. They didn't maybe need all of the 37 acres. They would be interested in working with the village to help us, if we wanted to provide for an expansion of the Thorntons, to work with us to try and accomplish that. So suddenly we have lots of marbles up in the air. Nobody knows who to talk to first. And the first question is the village at all receptive to this type of use? Obviously, this is the first some of you are hearing of it, and we can't make up our minds like this, but what is the process for thinking about it? Do we, maybe a workshop with the board and the plan commission at a specially noticed meeting, but it's a large departure. The comprehensive plan doesn't show that over there right now. It's possible with a lot of skill that you could take a use like that and berm it and landscape it and try and conceal it to some extent, but I can only imagine what a 24/7 operation is with trucks like that. And even if they're going in and off of Milwaukee, eventually they're going to turn on Deerfield Road. So all of us who listened to this listened, politely, because they had been directed to us by the owner of the 37 acres. But we don't know what to make of it other than it's something that someone's asked us to consider. So I wanted to report that to you. If you have any questions, I can try and answer. And if you, really the direction we're looking for is how ought the village ponder this request? What would you like to see as the board about how to ponder this, how to think about it?
And one of the other things that we did ask, and Bruce, I don't think you've heard back yet, was were they, if they didn't require the space, were they amenable to having some type of retail on the frontage on Milwaukee? Because their business does not require the frontage, only access. But they have to get into the special needs given that it's a landfill, et cetera. So with that, Henry and then Rick, I think you both had questions.
I have two questions and it relates more to Thornton's, Bruce. One is, what was Thornton's response to the lack of cooperation from CubeSmart? And second of all, did Thornton have any, was there any change in Thornton's response based on the idea that they could now have 3 diesel pumps, which I believe has significant impact on their revenue?
Thornton's was very interested in the idea that they could expand south and have diesel pumps. And when they, I thought the sketch was too rough. It had other features. I just saw it a few hours ago. I just didn't want to put it up because it was really just a thought piece. But having 3 diesel pumps with room for 18-wheelers to come in, also for 5 or 6 of them to temporarily park so people can get out and go to the convenience store. This is a sizable use of the site. So I don't think they would put that forward unless they thought it was going to generate a lot of revenue. They told me, I guess this is probably shareable information. They had measured the number of that type of truck traffic daily on Milwaukee, and it was a big number, and there's no competition anywhere. So Thornton's was extremely interested, from what they told me, in pursuing this idea.
And smart issue.
The CubeSmart issue, they were very disappointed. They can't understand why CubeSmart feels this way. I think CubeSmart, at some point in one of the conversations, had indicated that they're very highly leased up. They just don't see a benefit to them from having a lot of cut-through traffic in front of their building. It does nothing for them.
We still have the easement on the south side of their building, so it goes down to the property that we own on the east side of CubeSmart. So we can still provide some access for them down to that intersection.
Thornton's, if they can expand south with the diesel pumps, it creates a more complete circulation pattern off of Milwaukee. And so even though they would still have access, as the mayor was saying, south of CubeSmart for their gasoline customers, they're less concerned now that they wouldn't have the north access route. So this would make the deal for them. They would continue with the gas station on our parcel and put the diesel south on the 37 acres.
Trustee Jamerson?
So I have a couple of questions. I'm looking at a map right now, and I see that what I thought I heard you say, Bruce, was that it would go all the way to Picara.
Well, where the signalized entrance would be proposed on Picara, in other words.
So they wouldn't take up that entire space from the right in, right out on Milwaukee all the way down to Picara with diesel.
They would, but
that's almost 3 times the amount of space they have for the gas station.
I understand, but before, I don't know if the diesel pumps were for like vans or something like this. They're designing this for 18-wheelers.
Right, now I get it. Okay. And so my other concern with the 24/7 operation there are the people that live on Thorn Meadow, which is right across the river. And we would have to be very careful about noise and light emittance from the back of that center. So, I mean, that's going to be something that's going to come up because that's going to be
Huge.
Going to be an issue.
Right. If it's cross docking, that's a real problem. If they can find a way to do it on the west side, then it's more acceptable because their building would cut the noise. But yes, those are major concerns, light and noise.
Yeah. So,
especially up on top of the hill that sits there now.
well, right. It's elevated, which means the sound is going to travel down and
Yep.
It's, yeah, so there's a lot of considerations. It's probably a very good use for the site in general, in my opinion, but
Well, we raised those concerns and they did not balk at anything when we said you'd have to do something. Now, the devil will be in the details, obviously.
how about a sound wall?
I mentioned
Well,
that.
some people like those in some places.
I mentioned that.
And they were amenable to that.
Okay, well,
So because those are relatively inexpensive things to construct, but
Right.
I was thinking that the sound would travel from that way, into Buffalo Grove. And of course, that concerned me at that point.
well, it also can go up and over and make sure it gets over, because it usually will not back frontwards. It'll have the chance to just bounce up higher and over. So
yeah, okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
are there any other questions on that topic? Oh, Eric.
I was just curious, unless I missed it, how much additional sales tax revenue should the village expect is one question from Thornton's with the diesel. And then if I heard you correct, 5 acres were going to be required out of the 37 for this site. Does that mean that 32 acres will still be available for development? And if so, would that limit what can be developed?
I think I eyeballed it with them looking at the map. I didn't fortunately have Pat on the phone with me, so I couldn't. But looking at the space they were occupying, it was larger than the site that CubeSmart and the village parcel occupy. That site is 5 acres. So just looking at it, I said it had to be, that much space. It would leave the rest of the site is 37 and a half or something acres. So it would leave the rest of it available for development. Although bear in mind, all these developments have to provide detention and address those issues. So they'd have to figure out how that's going to be handled. And in terms of the amount of the sales tax, there was information that GMX Development provided to us. It's kind of, there's some proprietary hesitation about sharing with us the gallonage in sales and all that stuff. But based at the time, I think on about $3 a gallon, we had estimated that Thornton's would provide something like $300,000 a year in sales tax revenue, given our combination of taxes that we have. And that was before we adopted the gasoline tax. So we'd have to go back and look at that. And that number is before we looked at adding diesel. They said that they would provide a backup data for us on the sales anticipated from the diesel, but I don't have that tonight.
They had indicated somewhere between 50 to 100, I think, when they were talking about a smaller diesel island. So this, I would assume, would be greater, but again, that's just an assumption on my part. And obviously, any reduction of land has some restriction, but it wouldn't stop the main uses, I don't think, as they were describing it. They could be back off of the road and not necessarily be preventing that core issue. I was looking at some of these transfer tax or the sales tax with things now. That's kind of nuts as to how that's all working. They're working on new regulations for that. So it is conceivable that this could have some sales tax, but I don't think we should calculate on that. By that, I mean the distribution center development, but they were willing to consider other fees that we might be able to charge. Yes, Michael?
So it sounds like what this really is a truck stop.
Oh, you mean Thornton's?
Yeah, what they would be doing is they would turn it into a truck stop. So it would be a gasoline station and a truck stop.
That certainly would, I don't know how else we could describe it.
Right. So at
These
first,
are eligible for a gambling license if we say yes.
at first glance, it seems like something that would be appropriate for us from a standpoint of, where it's located, because it's basically on the outskirts of the village, and also from the sales tax revenue. But when you kind of dig deeper into it, I think one of the problems is that warehouse is like you said, the last mile warehouse. So that last mile warehouse is not typically going to have, 18 wheelers coming out of there. It's going to really have those all electric vans that Amazon uses. So it's not going to capture the diesel fuel usage from that warehouse itself. Instead, it's going to be potentially capturing the diesel usage for the trucks that maybe are dropping off stuff at that warehouse, and then whatever the normal traffic is along Milwaukee Avenue. But I think the bigger concern is that the traffic on Deerfield Road from that warehouse and or from a truck stop over there could be horrendous. And I think that's probably where we need to pay particular attention.
Without question, everything we want would be trying to direct traffic to go down to Lake Cook or to 22, not Deerfield, obviously.
Right. Although we could also think about the revenue that you might get for overloads.
Well,
And
yes, and trucks sneaking down there.
You know, that's something that the chief could probably opine on, but that revenue is, you know,
Yes,
off the charts type revenue.
it's more than paid for the people getting trained how to do the weighing, but
Right.
I think we just as soon not have it if we could avoid it, obviously. Any other questions on this topic from the board? Okay,
Well,
Council.
I go back to the board and you know, the developer who's contacted us wants some kind of response. This is one of those instances where, you know, we can't pull the board, but we're trying to figure out how do we speak for the village? What's the best way of approaching this kind of, you know, very considerable change in land use? What would you suggest that we do?
Well, my suggestion to the board is that some of these change uses have sort of been forced upon us by what's happened all around us. And that this is here, we need to try to take advantage of the situation and obtain revenue in a manner most favorable with the least impact on the village. But again, that's for you, Mr. Haber.
How much time is there left on the Thornton contract for their due diligence? Because at some point, I suspect that they have to make a decision. And that decision is going to likely have to be made far sooner than any decision could be made on the 37 acres and the annexation of any property from that parcel.
Let me get back to you on that. I'll tell you when I can.
Yeah, I think it's relatively soon, but I wouldn't want to just guess myself at this point. Henry?
Yeah, you know, we have a confluence of events here, which we would not have foreseen 6 months ago. First with Thornton's coming in and then not being able to give them diesel pumps, which has a significant impact. Now that becomes available. We had this 37 acres, which no one could build on after several developers have looked at it, and we weren't able to do anything with it. And also with the addition, which John mentioned, the surrounding area has changed. So I'm certainly positively disposed to looking at this more holistically than I was looking just at Thornton's or just at the 37 acres. This seems to go together very nicely and the timing works out well. And I think that if there's some way we can give the interested people an idea that the village is positively disposed, it's a good thing. And if the best way to do it is to combine the Plan Commission and the Board of Trustees for an hour, hour and a half to talk about it in a public meeting, I think that that certainly is a good way so we can flush out the concerns we might anticipate that would be roadblocks to it.
Yeah. Rick, do you have any comments? Want me to ask Cheryl to talk first, or
Well, if Cheryl
did I
wants,
stall long enough for you?
if Cheryl wants to talk first, she's more than welcome.
She hasn't asked. I was just trying to give you a little time when I'm calling on you.
I agree with Henry 100%. I think that we're in a situation that we wouldn't have realized 6 to 9 months ago, and I think that given all the development that's happened in that area, especially on the Buffalo Grove side, I think it's a totally different situation than we had when we had the last go around with McDonald's and the gas station that wanted to go there. And now we're also looking at Federal Life. I think that I would like to hear more from people that are interested.
Okay, Cheryl, you're next senior, you're more senior in any event.
I agree with Henry and Rick, and I think that having a meeting, perhaps with the Plan Commission, would be a great way of identifying in advance, as quickly as possible, the concerns that our residents might have so that we can identify those for the interested parties as quickly as possible so they know what might be roadblocks, yes, pun, for them and whether or not they see any problem with that.
Eric, you're next senior. Any comments you'd want to make at this point? No? Okay. Mr. Clayton?
I would just add, I agree with Henry as well, but I would add that I got very positive vibes from this particular developer. They went out of the room with saying, they had a saying there were three things that they needed to convince the village on. One was revenue, one was noise, and I forgot, and noise and light, and the third was traffic. So they walked away from the meeting understanding what the issues are. But on the other hand, I agree with Trustee Haber. These are significant issues and they're going to have to be addressed. I think what can be communicated to them at this particular point is that just what has been said, the board is favorably disposed, but there's a lot of concern about those three items. And we're going to take the steps to try to see if we can resolve those. And the more they can give us in terms of information that helps us make that decision, the better off they'll be.
One of the positive things too is they apparently they're not that far off price-wise, perhaps, with the owners of the property, that it may be doable. We've heard that before, but at least it sounds like they're somewhere in the vicinity. Also, the engineering required, obviously, for this type of building is a much more distributed load, and so it is less costly for them to build, which makes it a more viable project. So there is a better chance this may proceed. Rick?
I do have one more question that I just thought of. Since this is a last mile facility, did they say anything about the possible use of drones to deliver packages? I'm serious.
No, they didn't.
Huge noise issue.
They said they thought it was a last mile center. They promised that they would not have to do outdoor storage and other stuff that they do elsewhere, that they thought this was that kind of site. Obviously they would, if they had it under contract and were working on development, they would start marketing to the end users, which is, I think, how they do it. So,
but some of their brochures did show construction equipment being marshaled out in the yards or stored in the yards. And we pointed out that was not something we would necessarily be interested in. We don't want it to look like a construction yard. Henry?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe this is to Pat. Is there a way to tell them the light and sound criteria that they need to meet on the various cardinal points and let them figure out how to do it rather than just saying, well, we'll put up a sound wall? Are there standards that we can put out and let them come up with the solution?
I think we would probably start with identifying for them, helping them identify where the sensitive receptors are. The village, of course, our code, our code doesn't have numeric standards. But again, I think that we could probably learn from the county and establish some standards and see if they can reach those. But I mean, we can certainly work with them.
I'd rather do that than just say you have to put up a lot of trees or a sound wall or some sort of a berm and try to solve that problem for them. I'd rather give them the standard they need to meet and then see what the solutions are.
Henry, you may remember what we did with when the mulch center was wanting to come into the village and have their operation, with Meadow Lake being concerned about the noise, and we actually had chippers run, etc. So yeah, if nothing else, I would assume we could try to do that sort of exercise with them. And again, emphasize we don't want trucks running at night on the western side of any the eastern side of any buildings, etc. But
well, it removes any subjective part of the discussion. If you can give them a standard, then it makes it much more objective, and it's harder to, it's easier to justify.
Right, but for the residents, sometimes those objective standards are hard to actually explain, because what noise level is 100 decibels or 80 decibels? Somebody here may know, but I couldn't tell you off the top. I know 100 is not something you want, and at 120, you start having ear damage. But that's as far as I could go. So I agree with you. We want set standards if we can, but that may be hard to translate. All right, any other comments from the board? Council, I think that you have a generally openness expressed by the board, with details obviously being important, but I don't hear any objection to this.
Yes, after that brief village attorney report, I have a favor to ask of the mayor and the board. We have a number of people from Discover here tonight and their attorney as well. And they've got a conflict and didn't know quite how long the meeting would run. I know that their matter is up towards the end of the meeting. Would it be possible for us to consider out of order and take up the Plan Commission recommendation on Discover?
Well, I will, without objection, I will reorder the agenda and call item C under new business. Are there any objections? Hearing none, then the next item of business is an ordinance classifying 2326 North Saunders Road to the O and R1 Office and Research District, amending ordinance number 01-8-24 concerning a large office campus special use. These are the Discover properties. This is for first reading.
The Plan Commission report is in the packet along with many exhibits. I know not everyone on the board has seen all of the exhibits. Basically, the 3D models that are in the exhibits are probably the most helpful thing that you can look at. Because it's only up for first reading tonight, really, we thought it would be useful to just find out if there are particular questions, if you wanted any of the representatives from Discover to, in particular, present any of the material that was presented to the Plan Commission. The nature of the application essentially is that the Kings Kennel parcel is on the market. Discover decided to try and acquire it. They wanted to use it for either surface or deck parking in the alternative. And they contacted the village about how to go about it. And we explained that there's a special use that governs the entire campus. And we thought the best thing to do would be to apply to amend the special use to incorporate Kings Kennel as part of it. So it's subject to all of the ongoing controls and regulations that are in the special use ordinance. The ordinance tonight, the draft ordinance that's in the packet, has some blanks in it. Normally what we do in these ordinances for Discover is we have a list now of 70 something documents that constitute the master site plan for the site. And if this proposal is approved, then the ordinance would enumerate another, document 74, 5, 6, 7, that would be the drawings that they have discovered and that were presented that they've presented and were discussed at the Plan Commission that show in detail their landscaping and their structures. There were two caveats or conditions to the Plan Commission recommendation. One was that the height of the parking deck, if it's ever built, not exceed 32 feet from foundation to the flat deck on top. And the second condition was that the landscaping be revised to comply with the requirements of the village ecologist. There were some species that the village ecologist thought in the landscaping plan really wouldn't work on the site and wanted to work with with V3 engineers to modify the landscaping. So possibly we would have those revised exhibits in time for a second reading at the next meeting. So I don't want to take up too much more time. That the representatives from Discover are here. I just wanted to let the board have an opportunity to tell us what more detail or what they'd like tonight.
Any question, Jess, Mr. Haber?
So it's a question for you, Bruce. I know that the original plan had set aside certain areas for bike trails, and I was wondering if this is at all affecting that.
No.
Now, those original bike trails were totally on their pre-existing property.
Okay, but would they be impacted though? In other words, would they go through, would they somehow intersect or be between where the new parcel is and the existing parcel is? I just don't remember where they were located on the entire parcel.
They were going to go into the southwest corner of Thorn Gate from the Discover property.
They ran along the
Close
north.
to my house, a little farther east from my house, Mike, you
Yeah.
down on that
Okay.
corner, so.
It was
that
nowhere near over
across
on
there
this.
Existing,
Okay,
It was nowhere near this corner.
right.
Okay.
Because this had nothing to do with it, and nothing reached out to Saunders from there.
I just didn't recall exactly
Right.
where those were located. I wanted to make sure there wasn't any impact.
No, I say, we tried to talk by landmarks, that's why I figured the southwest corner there where it would cut up well before. Any other questions or comments? If not, do I have a motion for first reading?
So moved.
Second,
Second. All right, any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call. Oh,
John,
I'm sorry. Yes, Rick.
has a quick question. I was looking at the drawings and, oh, never mind. That's just an emergency exit that's coming out the east side to
Yes.
Saunders. That would be
Correct.
chained
Yep.
off most of the time, correct?
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. This is Pete Kennedy from Discover.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see that the first
Okay.
time. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? If not, may I have a roll call, please, on a first reading of an ordinance classifying 2326 North Saunders Road to the O&R1 Office and Research District and amending ordinance number 01-8-24 concerning a large office campus special use.
Trustee Chamberlain,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Goldstein,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you, and hopefully we can make sure that if you do get a chance to look at the Plan Commission and the draft ordinance, that you put in any questions ahead of time for us, because we would like to be able to move forward on this at the next meeting.
Thank you, and thank you for accommodating us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, we're going to be here either way, so no problem.
Thank you much.
You're welcome. All right, then, moving back, we were in the village attorney's report. Bruce, did you have anything else?
Mercifully not.
Okay, village ecologist is not here. He will be presenting some materials at the next board meeting. Police report, Bruce. Let me get turned off over here first.
That's okay. I only have what's in the packets for police activity.
Any questions for the chief? Yes, Rick.
Chief, do you know how many total DUIs we had last year?
I can probably look in just a moment here.
I think you're muted again, Bruce. I'm not. Oh, that's right, I turned it off.
Let's see here. See.
As of the 12-15 report, we
Yes.
had 40 out of 40.
I'm looking at that now too.
40. We had 40
40.
and then 55 last year. So depending on how many we had in the last 2 weeks of the year, which I don't remember seeing too many on your.
I think we've had 2 or 3. So we're behind from last year, just mainly because we weren't making a lot of stops during the stay-at-home order.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the chief?
Yeah.
Yes, Henry?
I was looking over the numbers, and one of the things that popped out was the identity theft, which was tenfold different.
Mhm.
Are they being handled any differently, or is that truly an increase of 1,000-fold?
It's an increase of 1,000-fold. And that's because of the IDES, the Illinois Department of Employment. There's a big scam going out around, not just in Illinois, but throughout the country. And I put out some emails on that I hope everybody has seen. And what we're doing is we're just taking the reports, and that's allowing people to be able to freeze their credit without any cost. We're not really doing any investigation on it. It's too widespread. The feds are doing that, and we're also telling people that they need to report it to IDES. And there's a spot on the FBI website to also report it, and that's what we're telling them to do. And so the federal government's investigating it, and the state is investigating it. We're just basically taking these reports. So I know that Buffalo Grove, Deerfield, all of our neighbors have, I mean, our numbers are small compared to theirs because we're a smaller town. But every day.
We have about 180 employees right now, and I think we've had about 35 to 40 false reports.
Well, my wife had one where they first said they were authorities in New Mexico. Then they called back and said they were the Riverwoods Police Department and they were going to put the chief on. And they actually had somebody talking to my wife, to which she could say, I know Bruce Dano and you're no Bruce Dano, to which there was a sudden click on the phone.
Anyway,
they work at it. They at least had Bruce's name.
Anyway, to clarify a little bit on what's going on with the IDEs, is my understanding is that people are getting these these cards in the mail with cash on them. But what's really happening is nobody should be using them. But what's happening is their identities have been stolen, and after the cards are mailed, somebody is actually contacting IDEs and saying, you know what, instead of the cards, just put it in this bank account. So by the time the cards get to the people, they're often valueless, and the money's already in some account that's been opened and closed already. So
Was that your card, or was that one that's a fraud?
I received notice that I was fired. I was actually happy. But,
yeah, you fired yourself, huh?
I fired myself.
The tension of COVID is getting to be too high. Well, you know what? They must be making money off of this stuff. It's kind of incredible, but it's also so sad when you think of how many people really need this that are being forced to at least be slower about using it, etc. That's never good, but that's really sad. So, okay, any other questions for the chief? If not, then moving on to information items, which Trustee Jamerson hinted at. Trustee Holler and I have been working with a village resident who is adamantly opposed to the sound wall that the county is being forced by federal regulations to erect at Saunders and Deerfield. He says he has an engineering degree, et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying to work with him, but he's going to be publishing some letters apparently saying that we're not doing enough, et cetera. I just want you to be aware. There's really nothing that we can do. These are requirements that are all set out by the feds. The county, I'm sure, would be happy not to build the wall because they're paying for 20% of it anyway. So, and frankly, if we can find a way not to, we'll be happy not to build it. But we're, that's out there. So just be aware of it. Second, we had a problem over the weekend with fobs at the village hall. Haiti got them working today, as was suspected by some very wise people. It was, in fact, that it was a New Year's issue going up from 2020 to 2021. So now it's been set that it will expire in 2040. So that'll be 20 years. And I doubt if any of us, except maybe Trustee Haber, will still be here because he's been here forever. But so hopefully that won't be a problem in the future. All of you that have fobs, they should be working. Bruce, do we have any emails from visitors no visitors wishing to address the board? Yes, I forgot, Henry, it was a long time ago before this meeting started. Please, everybody register with the county for your COVID vaccine. Apparently that it's moving along and people are getting their shots, et cetera. Most of you are probably too young to get it right away, but we want to make sure that everybody is lined up to get it as soon as possible. Although I do have a friend whose daughter-in-law is a nurse in Virginia, and she got her first shot last week and this week tested positive. So, you can't count on it one way or the other, but it's still something you should have. No, it was not thought to be from the vaccine. It's thought to be from exposure, obviously, at the hospital. So moving on then, do I have a motion for approval of bills?
Move.
Is there a second?
Excuse me.
Yes.
I'd like to ask the board a question. I know you'd ask for emails, but I called into the
You're
meeting?
here. Go ahead right now.
Okay, yeah, hi, this is Mike Marshall. I live in Indian Trails. I
Yes.
had a question about sidewalk removal of the snow removal of the village sidewalks. It snowed over the holidays. The sidewalks along Riverwoods Road are covered in snow and ice. I see many people out there walking, either exercising or walking dogs. Even people are walking on the streets, which probably isn't safe. And over the weekend, I completed and sent in a village website contact us form, but I haven't heard back from anyone. And so I wonder, does the village have a plan to clean sidewalks that are
At this time, we would
covered in
not,
snow?
but we will be willing to look at it again. But I'm not telling you that it will change. At this point, we haven't been doing it.
So
I will
there's-
find out where the contact us form went because I should have seen it by now. Russ, you didn't see it, did you?
No, I haven't seen anything, haven't had any phone calls or any other correspondence with it.
So in any event, Mike, we understand that what you're in essence requesting is you believe that we should be trying to clean the safety paths, sidewalks, bicycle path.
Yes, I agree. And if you look, so I walk from Indian Trails, I go up into Lincolnshire, and as soon as you hit the border, they've got pretty nice clean sidewalks.
Mhm.
And people are walking on there instead of Riverwoods Road, which isn't very safe. So it would be great if we could have that type of service.
Okay, well, we'll look into it, is what I would say right now. There are no specific plans right now, but we will check on it. And we'll
Okay, so by looking into it, would this be addressed at a next meeting, or how would we hear
Well,
about following up?
one of us will get back to you, either Russ or I will get back to you individually. And I would imagine I'll probably inform the board what's occurred or where it is.
Okay, all right, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Right now, back to approval of bills. I started to hear a motion of approval somewhere, I think. Trustee Jamerson, is there
Motion.
a second?
Second.
I have a motion for approval of bills and a second. I know there have been some questions that I hope have been addressed by staff. Are there any questions this evening? Yeah, Cheryl?
I sent in this question, but I hadn't gotten a response. In my bills, the fast sign bill was actually from July, due in August. It shows as January in our packet, but I don't know. But the actual bill, I don't know why we would be paying a July bill now, so I just asked about that.
Okay, I will have to check on that. I'm not sure. Why, I know some were delayed and not received, but it's not showing overdue. It's just saying August, right?
Correct.
I'll double check that. Mr. Clayton, I think you had a question.
Just because I've forgotten, I guess, we have a $93,000 bill for paving, and I was kind of wondering where that was done.
Pat, are you still out there somewhere?
Is that Kingswood?
I'm I'm looking through. I didn't, where do we have that? I'm looking on.
General number 55, Chicagoland Paving Contractors, Maintenance Streets, $92,755.34.
I had sent that recommendation in sometime late last year. I thought we'd already acted on it, and I honestly, if I would have heard from Chicagoland by now if we hadn't. So maybe let's investigate that again.
Okay, we'll hold that one, and it won't be paid until we double check that either. So that will just be a contingent approval on those. Are there any others? Yes, Rick?
Yeah, and I just happened to notice the 122 Halloran and Youch. That's the people that blow out the drinking fountain lines so they don't freeze. They're landscape people.
Right.
It's listed as legal expense. So it probably is coded incorrectly.
Okay, it is.
John?
Yep.
Regarding the Kingswood Court paving was 75,587. I don't know how if that matches what you were concerned about, Rick.
I didn't bring it up, but
No, that was Mike Clayton.
Oh, Mike.
it was 90-some thousand he was talking about.
That includes, then the paving includes for the Village, Kennelwood, and Kingswood Court would be $90,000.
92,755.
Yeah, that's correct. 92,755.34 cents. It includes 3 essays in the Village. So those are all I approved.
But I think the question is, from Pat's standpoint, was he thought that was.
Pat's
something-
wondering about the timing as well, but Mike just wanted to know what it was. And
Yeah,
since
I
we
mean,
have a question about Cheryl's as well, we'll double check that.
Okay.
That definitely is for the project in its entirety. I just don't recall if I had seen that on a previous agenda. So we just need to confirm that. We'll only pay them once.
Right. We'll make sure of that. But again, that's what the trustees are looking for. They're doing their jobs.
John, on the one fast sign that was questioned.
Yes.
My predecessor had ordered a sign and it got lost in the paperwork and shuffle.
Okay.
And I got it resurrected. That went over by the police department. And I think that might be that one because that was ordered
Okay.
like July or August.
So
and it just
that's
finished-
why I'm still surprised they never sent us past due, but
Right.
that we'll find out. We'll find out in any event. The date raises a question. Okay, any other questions? And subject to the reservations thus expressed, I take it the motion will be amended to have those reservations in the second. Okay, subject to those reservations, approval of bills. May I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Chamberlain,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Goldstein,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Then moving on to item A under new business, approval of resolution for improvement under Illinois Highway Code BLR 90110 with Saunders Road. This is a standard state form. Mr. Engineer, this basically is something we have to do if we want to be eligible for the funding, correct?
Right, so these are the preliminary steps for the phase 1 engineering for Saunders Road. One is to pass a resolution appropriating the MFT funds for the project. And then the second is the agreement between the village and my firm to do the work. And then we need to have 5 signed copies of each and get them down to IDOT, but it's the preliminary, it's the first steps to getting IDOT authorization to spend the MFT money on the project.
So do I have a motion for approval of the resolution for improvement under Illinois Highway Code?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, roll call please for a motion to approve the resolution for improvement under the Illinois Highway Code.
Trustee Chamberlain,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Goldstein,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Resolution 210101.
Thank you. Then item 2 is approval of the preliminary engineering agreement for MFT funds, BLR 05510 on the Saunders Road project. I think the engineer just explained what it was. Again, it's a requirement of the Illinois form contract that we need to have for the engineering to be done.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, roll call please on the approval of the preliminary engineering agreement for MFT funds for Saunders.
Trustee Chamberlain,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Goldstein,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander, trustee
Aye.
Jamerson.
If there's no more new business, there is no old business. Standing committee reports, trustee Haber.
I don't have anything. I was just gonna, as I was sitting here thinking of something, we were talking about the federal life property. Bruce, I was wondering if you know what's going on with the property to the east of that appears to be abandoned, the single family home? Or maybe Russ knows something.
No,
about
I
that.
do know. We actually had an administrative hearing with that. they had a certain amount of time to put the property on the market. Then they claimed they couldn't because a neighbor was operating a business in violation. It took us a while. We brought the neighbor before the administrative hearing process. So we've probably spun our wheels for quite a while now. And in the meantime, and because of COVID, we haven't had any hearings, but probably they're in default or not following through on the terms of a settlement agreement that we had. And that's where it sits right now.
I mean, it really looks like that property needs to be demolished.
Yeah, well, that was the requirement was that they were going to put on the market and it lead to that outcome. And obviously they didn't do it.
Is that adjacent to Federal Life or not? Or is there a property in between? I'm just trying to remember.
I believe those are adjacent.
No, there's one in between.
Well,
Is
yeah,
that-
that's the one that was the other property that was conducting the business. And then there's the one that's looks like it's falling down. But we're just going to have to get back after them.
So it's something that I don't generally like to do, but to the extent that the Federal Life property is something that we're all kind of thinking about and focused in
Yep.
on, we might want to actually think about acquiring that property.
Well, we will talk about having a receiver, et cetera, if necessary, if they're not going to maintain it.
Mike, it's not contiguous. It's not contiguous to the Federal Life property. There's a parcel between it.
Right.
So
Okay.
it would be sitting out all by itself. I don't think
I
you
know.
want.
Still, it should be done, period, because it's a problem for anybody there and is a potential hazard. So we.
Is the property in between the one that was having with the
The
issue
business.
about all the additional fields they were putting in the back?
Yes. Conducting the business and then dump the dirt. And this particular individual kept pointing over there and saying, see, they're bad. I can't do anything. And we said, we don't care. You take care of your property. We'll get after them. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I have nothing though further.
okay. Trustee Chamberlain?
Nothing other than the report in the packet.
All right. Trustee Jamerson?
The building report is in the packet. It's a final one for 2020. Just the highlights of the construction value is about 50%, almost exactly of what it was in 2019. And the permit fee is almost it's just a little bit underneath, just below 50%. So it wasn't unexpected. We expected the permit values to go down because Discover was not doing as much work inside the building as they were in 2019. So.
Right. Trustee Goldstein?
No report.
Trustee Hollander?
No report.
Trustee Clayton?
Nothing other than what we've already discussed.
All right, I have no reason I'm aware of to go into executive session. The next regular session is January 19th, 2021 at 7:30. Does anyone have anything for the good of the order? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll
Second.
take that as a motion and second. Roll call, please, on a motion to adjourn.
Trustee Chamberlain,
Aye.
trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Goldstein,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Speed these meetings up. I'm going to eliminate the attorney's report. Obviously, that takes too long.
Sorry.
Everybody have a good evening. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.